Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.
The New York Giants are 5-1. How far could they go? The Yankees force Game 5 of the ALDS versus the Guardians. Plus, is Rocky Top back? The answer is yes. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Heading into the London game last week, there were questions on if the 3-1 New York Giants were for real. Since then, they beat the Packers and they beat the Ravens on Sunday. That Packers win, maybe not quite so impressive after the Jets put it on Green Bay on Sunday, but the Giants, every bit of 5-1 after they take down the Baltimore Ravens 24-20. Joining me now from Locked On Giants, Patricia Traina. And Patricia, this is a game in which Saquon Barkley averaged under 4 yards a carry. The Giants' leading receiver was Daniel Bellinger, and the Giants won the game. How did they do it?
They didn't use smoke and mirrors. What they did was they did not beat themselves, which is what the Giants have done for years. For example, you look at the penalties. The Giants only had 3 penalties all game long. The Ravens had 10. And of those 10 penalties, you saw false starts. You saw unsportsmanlike conducts. You saw too many guys on the field. You saw discipline-related penalties. So you also saw the Giants bounce back when something went wrong. Rather than sit there and dwell or have doubts about themselves, they came back and they came out swinging. So this is a team that is learning how to win by not beating themselves, overcoming their shortcomings, and taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented to them. And it has paid off for them so far in the form of the 5-1 season that they're currently enjoying.
This is the second straight game where in the second half, they have come alive. 17 points in the second half in this one, 17 of their 24, including 14 in the fourth quarter. They did the same thing, flipped the script on the Packers in London. What is it about this team that keeps them in these games and then allows them to turn it on when it really matters in the fourth?
They adjust. I mean, a lot of coaches downplay adjusting, but there are adjustments made. You know, you go in with a game plan, and sometimes you're going to feel out, especially in the beginning, you're going to feel out the opponent to see what they're doing and how they're responding to what you have planned out. Because, you know, look, the best laid plans sometimes go astray. Mm-hmm. So the Giants, what they have been able to do, and this is where coaching comes in so much into play. They've adjusted little things, you know, like for example, the Giants in this game, they had Julian Love was the spy on Lamar Jackson. Well, that wasn't really working as well. So what did they do? They adjusted. They said, okay, Xavier McKinney, you go and you spy Lamar Jackson. And that seemed to, you know, ebb the flow, so to speak. So adjustments are key, as is the fact that, again, if something happens and, you know, the coaches are right there to say, hey, forget about it. And this could be good or bad. Don't get too high on something good. Don't get too low if something bad happens. Focus on what you can control, which is the next play, not what has just happened.
Through 6 weeks, this Giants team just might be the second best team in the NFC right now that we have seen to this point. And certainly 2 weeks ago, I never would have thought that I would be in a position to be saying that to you. Part of that is the 49ers and the Packers and the Rams do not look like world beaters by any means. What more is out there for this team? They seem like they're exploiting the margins. They're not beating themselves. As you mentioned, this was a game in which they were outgained 406 to 238, but the turnovers and the penalties were the difference. So where can they get better? What more untapped can they get to?
Well, they definitely got to sew up the pass protection. Daniel Jones, I think, was sacked 4 times and he was hit 5 times. Can't be having that. Can't be having drop passes by the receivers. I think there were about 3 drops unofficially by my count. So you got to fix that. Can't have missed tackles. So basically fundamental stuff that can be cleaned up, stuff that the coaches can work with these players. Now, I've said before, and I'll say it again, this Giants team is not a complete team. It does have some holes. Imagine what it's going to be like once Joe Shane has a healthy cap situation and can address some of these holes. You know, at receiver, for example, they don't really have a number one receiver since Kenny Golladay is, currently injured and hasn't really done anything. What about cornerback? They've had some injuries back there. So they've got to address that. And there are other spots that they can probably, fortify the depth. So, they're on the right track, this Giants team. They've been a pleasant surprise, a team to deal with, but they have a lot of growth that they could still do, from the fundamentals to just adding, more talent at certain positions.
Stay up to date all year on the New York Football Giants by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and the Locked On Giants podcast on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, who will face the Astros in the ALCS this Wednesday? If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's great joys. And guess what? If you haven't tried the cookie dough flavor, you are missing out a little bit extra, because the cookie dough chunk puff is a miracle of modern science. It really is. 160 calories, 15 grams of protein, but it's covered in 100% real chocolate cookie dough chunks in the bar. Real cookie dough chunks, but it's got that protein-infused marshmallow. And what else do you need me to say? Protein-infused marshmallow. Hello? Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Go to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON15. The Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs lived up to the hype, with the Bills taking the lead with just 1:04 remaining in the game. We'd seen this movie before, right? Patrick Mahomes going to lead them down the field. They're going to win. Except Taron Johnson had other ideas. He intercepted Patrick Mahomes to seal the win for the Bills and give them sole possession of the number 1 seed in the AFC.
In the marquee game of Week 6 in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs lost to the Buffalo Bills in what was a great fought game, and one that is a preview of something to come. I'm Ryan Tracy from Locked On Chiefs, and this is the way that it goes sometimes. A lot of back and forth, better defensive play on the Kansas City Chiefs side than we expected. Maybe not what we expected from the Buffalo Bills. They turned over the ball too much, and more so than the Bills did, and that's what leads to the ball game. 2 inopportune interceptions from Patrick Mahomes couldn't balance out the one play that was ruled as a fumble from Josh Allen. And in the end, that proved to be the difference. There was a missed field goal as well. This could have been a 1-point game in the opposite direction as well. When it comes down to it, these are the 2 best teams in the AFC, and they will meet again come January. You can hear all about it on Locked On Chiefs, your team every day.
The Minnesota Vikings are sitting at 5-1 after Sunday's win against the Miami Dolphins. The Vikings are in first place in the NFC North heading into their bye week.
Don't look now, but the Vikings are 5-1. The Vikings beat the Dolphins 24-16 in Miami. Dolphins dealing with all sorts of quarterback issues. Skylar Thompson meant to start this game. They had to go to Teddy Bridgewater with an injury earlier in the game. So Dolphins dealing with a lot of issues, and the Vikings dealt with a lot of their own issues of their own making as well. The Dolphins really moved the ball on the Vikings. Tyreek Hill goes over 100 yards, but penalties or sacks or missed field goals, what have you, the Dolphins just couldn't cash in, and there were a lot more opportunities for points here. That said, some of those turnovers are earned. The Vikings get a couple of interceptions on a tipped ball, like tip drill thing. Patrick Peterson makes a fantastic interception on Teddy Bridgewater, a forced fumble from Harrison Smith on what would have been a 3rd down conversion, which kind of perfectly encapsulates the game. You let them go all the way down the field on you, but you made the play at the end. And the Vikings had to make 14 stops in this game. There are 14 Dolphins possessions. Holding them to 16 points on that is impressive no matter how you slice it. On the other side of the ball, though, absolute horror show on offense. The Vikings had 2 touchdown drives, 10 3-and-outs. 10 3-and-outs on 14 possessions. So many possessions where they just punted it right back to the Dolphins. Really, really bad performances, particularly in the run game, which kept them behind the chains. We talked about that on the postcast with Sam Ekstrom. But ultimately an explosive runaway touchdown by Dalvin Cook, and those 2 touchdown drives were enough, as well as 1 field goal from a short field drive. So Vikings win. No matter how you slice it, you can't take away that they won. 5-1. 2-game lead in the division as the Packers lost to the Jets today, and they go into their bye in about as good a spot as you can ask for. For more on all this, you can find the Locked On Vikings podcast, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, free and available on all platforms.
The Golden State Warriors continue to be in the news, but this time it's for something positive. The Warriors signed Jordan Poole to a 4-year, $140 million contract extension and Andrew Wiggins to a 4-year, $109 million contract extension. The payroll and luxury tax for the Warriors in the 2023-2024 season currently $483 million. I'm sure this is totally unrelated to Draymond Green wanting a new contract and punching one of the players who just got a new deal. Totally unrelated. The Miami Dolphins quarterback injury woes continue as their third starting quarterback left the game with an injury. Rookie Skylar Thompson got the start versus the Vikings before injuring his hand, forcing Teddy Bridgewater, who was the second string quarterback but not cleared until late in the week, into the game. Are we following all of this? Of course, Tua Tagovailoa working through concussion protocol after he was controversially played on Thursday night a few weeks ago and took another vicious hit. The Carolina Panthers made waves on Sunday afternoon, not for anything they did on the field, but for interim head coach Steve Wilks sending receiver Robbie Anderson to the locker room after he got into an argument with wide receiver coach Joe Dailey.
No one is bigger than the team, and I'm not going to focus and put a lot of tension on one individual. We can talk about the game. We can talk about situations within the game. We can talk about the things we're going to do moving forward, but I'm not putting a lot of energy into one individual.
All I'm saying is gladly put him on a plane, send him to Green Bay. The Packers would love to have him. The Yankees-Guardians ALDS series has not been for the faint of heart. Walk-offs, one-score games, and heart-in-your-throat moments, including a 4-2 final in Game 4 to push it to a Game 5. The Yankees get the win. Stacey Gadzoulias from Locked On Yankees joins me now. And Stacey, this has been a gut-wrenching series for Yankees fans. If we had talked to Yankees fans a night ago, they might have had very different feelings than they do right now. So heading into Game 5, what is your confidence level in this team moving forward?
I feel better, obviously. I was
better than planning a trip to Cancun. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of had a feeling things were going to go okay today. I kind of woke up calm, which is that's not a thing for me during the playoffs. And I was feeling kind of zen. But then, of course, during the game, not zen at all. But I don't know. I'm feeling okay. I'm not doom and gloom like I was after last night's loss or after Saturday night's loss.
Well, you get the start from Garrett Cole, 7 innings, just 2 earned, and the bats do just enough. Mm-hmm. Is this and they don't blow it at the end of the game. So I feel like we have to sort of backpedal a little bit. How did you feel about the handling of the bullpen in this game? Because I know a lot of Yankees fans and maybe some Yankees players were not thrilled with how the bullpen was handled over the weekend.
I was still a little concerned about the flipping of Clay Holmes and Wandy Peralta, because usually Holmes is the closer and Peralta threw 27 pitches on Saturday and 16 pitches on Friday, and he's being used a lot. And because of all the games being bunched together, I mean, Boone doesn't really have a choice. I liked tonight. He didn't do too much, thankfully Cole didn't give him a reason to do too much. That's, Cole lasting as long as he did made it so Boone really couldn't make any bullpen blunders. Thank goodness.
Now, they still have to win Game 5. And luckily, a team like the Dodgers has taken a lot of pressure off the Yankees to be the most disappointing team this season, because the Dodgers may well be the most disappointing team like of the last 100 years statistically in a lot of categories. But for the Yankees, to you, what is at stake in this game? Because this was a season that for 6 months, basically, this was the favorite, at least in the American League.
I would like to thank the Dodgers for doing what they did, because that's a much bigger choke than the Yankees. This series has been very strange. Cleveland has had a lot of luck on their side, a lot of weird bloops and plays that are happening, and they're not a bad team. They're fast. They know how to run the bases. So when they do get those bloop hits, they're running all over the place, and the Yankees don't really know what to do with themselves when that happens. So it wouldn't be a disaster if they lost, because the Braves lost, the Dodgers lost, basically the Yankees would just be the third in a line of teams that people expected to go farther in the playoffs.
What do you make of the Guardians' swagger in this series? We saw the rocking of the baby, home run celebration. I mean, this is a young, vivacious team, and the Yankees, and they have traditionally been a little bit more buttoned up. That's been the Yankee way for a long time, but this is a contrast of styles in a lot of ways. Would you like to see them maybe bring a little bit of that fire to a game 5 in a must-win situation?
Yes, I just don't want the Yankees to celebrate prematurely because we've seen them do that and have teams come back on them and win games. It happened in 2021 against Houston. They were winning a game 7-2 and they ended up losing after they were running around the bases and crowing. So, yes, I like to see swagger, and I would like the Yankees to have more swagger because we don't get to see that more often. And I don't mind Cleveland. I mean, they're excited. People were counting them out. And, if they make it past the Yankees, sky's the limit for them.
Stay up to date all postseason on the New York Yankees by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and the Locked On Yankees podcast on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. Coming up, the Tennessee Volunteers beat the Alabama Crimson Tide for the first time since 2006. And if you know where they are, they're looking for their goalposts too. We got to check that out. Here's what to look for on BetOnline, your number one spot for all of your gambling needs. Tonight's Monday Night Football game is between division rivals. The Los Angeles Chargers host the Denver Broncos. BetOnline has the Chargers 4.5-point favorites. The over-under for the game set at 45.5. BetOnline is where the game starts. It was an instant classic. Tennessee takes down number 3 Alabama. The number 6 Volunteers 52, Alabama 49 in a thriller. Joining me now from Locked On Vols, Eric Kane. And Eric, this is a Volunteers team that has really turned things around in a remarkable way over, 2-3 years? I mean, if we had told you 3 years ago that they would be in this position now, you probably would have said, I'm sorry, what? So how have they turned this program around?
It's actually been 17 months. In January of 2021, some dark times, obviously, here on Tennessee with the previous staff, under investigation, being, fired for cause and trying to find a coach, trying to find an athletic director. And in comes in Josh Heupel, and, you kind of start this process again. Tennessee fans have been used to this process. It's happened, 3-4 times since Philip Fulmer, retired. And, what's different about Josh Heupel, right? Well, I think you saw in year one that it's going to be fast, the tempo, the offense. It also helps when you got a quarterback. And so those two things, this head coach, his philosophy, the ability to coach up and to lead a guy like Hendon Hooker, who is playing as good or better than anybody else in the country. It's been phenomenal. So Tennessee, if you can score, you can win a lot of football games now in 2022 college football, and Tennessee can score. And that's kind of that's how they beat Florida. That's how they beat Alabama. Obviously had to outscore them. And put a lot of points up against LSU a week ago. So quarterback play, offense, head coach minded. This team takes after their head coach, and it's been a fun ride so far.
You mentioned Hendon Hooker. Let's not forget Jalen Wyatt. 6 catches, 5 touchdowns for 207 yards. An absolute unbelievable performance in this one. And I think to your point about the turnover, this is a program right now that doesn't have the full complement of recruits with this coach. There's still cycles to go here, and this is the kind of win that can go a long way when you're trying to recruit in the SEC.
Oh, no doubt. And there were, there were recruits that were on campus and were sitting in the stands and saw that finish and saw
and helped them carry the goalposts.
Jump out of the stands and rush the field, take down the goalposts. I think some of those recruits that were on visits might have been jumping on the field as well. I mean, what an atmosphere. You can't get any better than that if you're trying to recruit a quality of player here to Tennessee. And also this too, in that offseason from 2020 into 2021, a ton of Tennessee's better players left it for the transfer portal. They said, hey, I'm not going to stick around. Right. I want to go see what else is good for me. This is kind of a bad situation here. And some, credit those players who stayed and who toughed it out. And now they're kind of reaping those benefits there. But from a roster standpoint, it's gotten better over the year and a half or so. It's still not where it needs to be, but it's good enough, obviously. And, you're good enough. You get coached up the right way. And again, when you have a quarterback and playmakers like Jalen Hyatt, as you pointed out, you can go win football games like this.
Now, you were at this game. You mentioned the atmosphere. Again, not that long ago, where saw plenty of empty seats at the stadium. What was it like to be there for this moment, with the understanding that there has been a lot of turnover here since Philip Fulmer left town?
Yeah, Tennessee's such a beautiful facility. Neyland Stadium is one of the best places ever to watch a college football game. I truly believe that. I know I covered Tennessee, but it's awesome. One thing about it is it's not an open air press box, and I hate that. But in my 5 years of being in that press box and covering this team, not until Saturday could I say that I felt the stadium shake. Could I actually hear consistently the roar of the crowd? You could hear it every now and again, but I heard it a lot on Saturday. We just don't get to feel or hear that type of stuff being in the press box. But Saturday, it was different. Credit those fans. And obviously, you stay there till the end, saw the game-winning kick, saw everybody rush the field. But, when you're on that field post-game and you're, crowded around everybody else smoking cigars, this is a cigar game. And you look up and you look in the top deck and there's still people there 30 minutes, 40 minutes after the game. This fan base just wants a winner, so hungry for a winner. And you see a little bit of it in basketball, saw it a little bit with Tennessee baseball this past year and 2 years ago going to the World Series. You're just waiting on football to come around, and it's here. So it's been a whole lot of fun. That atmosphere was incredible. It was great for the Florida game a couple of weeks ago. It was really good for the Ole Miss game last year. But this is obviously as good as it gets. And you see the passion, no goalposts. It's in the Tennessee River somewhere. It was a whole lot of fun.
And finally, the Arizona Cardinals offense is struggling, only scoring 3 points against an underwhelming Seattle Seahawks defense. The worst part about these struggles, Kyler Murray was really hoping his stats would look good enough so he could play poorly once the new Call of Duty comes out. Thanks for making Locked On Sports today your first listen. Now go find your favorite team's Locked On podcast and make them your second listen. Coming up on tomorrow's show, could Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos get their offense in a rhythm against the Chargers? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.